Hi, I'm not John Green, and this is not Crash Course U.S. History, but we are talking about education, science, art, literature in the 18th and 19th century. First, we start off with education, particularly the free schools for free people movement.
Mr. Green, does that mean that all free people had an opportunity to get a free education?
I'm not Mr. Green, but anyway, that was not the case. In America's earliest years, tax-supported schools were scarce and frowned upon as the movement started to take place. The idea of public schools became popular in the North due to laborers' increasing influence and demand for education. The people wanted intelligent citizens with the power to vote, because as Thomas Jefferson said, a civilized nation that was born ignorant and free never was and never will be. Now, as the fight for public schools had started, the need for higher education began to stir, due to the Second Religious Great Awakening. Small religious liberal arts colleges were popping up all over the nation, but were filled with little intellect and a lot of boredom. Like certain classes that I will not name, and pretty soon state-supported universities started appearing in the South. Now also during this time, women's education was still frowned upon, and some people believed that an education could injure a woman's brain. In the 1820s, secondary level women's school began to gain respect thanks to Emma Willard. In 1821, Willard established the Troy Female Seminary, and in 1837, Oberlin College followed in suit by opening their schools to women after already shocking the masses by allowing black students. Critics scoffed, responding, "They'll be educating cows next." By the end of the education movement, other areas began expanding as well. Scientific achievements were growing rapidly. Now, although the early Americans were mainly interested in creating inventions rather than scientific findings, there are some noteworthy scientists from this time period. Professors like Louis Agassiz and Asa Gray, while Agassiz was known for doing only original research and carrying snakes in his pockets. Gary, on the other hand, published over 350 books, monographs, and papers, which in turn set new standards for textbooks. Now, although medical schools were growing steadily in the country, medicine was still pretty primitive considering today's standards. Medicines were often misused, more harmful than helpful. When it came to architecture, there were very little contributions in the first half of the century. The most notable architect of the time was Thomas Jefferson, and the most notable buildings, his home, Monticello, and the University of Virginia. When it came to painting, though, society didn't have the time or money to afford portraits. Let's go to the thought bubble. Not to mention that Puritans considered art a sinful waste of time, America at the time did not have the wealthy class who could afford to sit for hours for a portrait. Since artists couldn't find work, most went to England where they could find training and patrons. Notable artists of the time were Gilbert Stuart, who made idealized and dehumanized portraits of George Washington, and George Trumbull, who recaptured the scenes and spirit of the Revolutionary War. As nationalism progressed, so did paintings, moving from human portraits to mirrorings of local landscapes. Music was another factor. Puritans were once again a giant buzzkill, condemning non-religious singing. But rhythmic and nostalgic dark tunes were coming into popularity by mid-century. American minstrel shows were a special favorite. One main contributor to the music movement was Stephen C. Foster, who captured the plaintive spirit of slaves. Literature in America at this time was mainly imported or plagiarized from Britain. Most American writings were put into practical outlets like political essays. American literature received a boost from the wave of nationalism that followed the War of Independence and the War of 1812. Writers like Washington Irving, Alexander Hamilton, James Fenimore Cooper, and William Bryant changed the game with their literary works. Trumpeters of Transcendentalism was a literary flowering in New England in the 1830s. The Transcendentalists believed that the truth transcends past the senses and could not be found by only observation. They believed everyone had an inner light that can put them in direct touch with God. Some well-known people of this movement were Ralph Waldo Emerson, best known for his writing and lectures, Henry David Thoreau, who condemned the government for supporting slavery and was imprisoned for not paying a poll tax, and Walt Whitman, who wrote Leaves of Grass, a collection of poems that gained him a large following from America and Europe. Literary individuals were lights of early America. Not every writer of the time was a transcendentalist like Emerson and Thoreau, but most were influenced by the movement. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and Edgar Allan Poe were influential in this time. Longfellow is now one of America's most popular poets, and Poe influenced modern detective models and psychological thrillers. Other popular male writers of the time included Oliver Wendell Holmes, John Greenleaf Whittier, William Gilmore Simms, and James Russell Lowell. Popular female writers of the times were Louise May Alcott and Emily Dickinson. But, like Poe, not all writers believed in human goodness. Writers like Nathaniel Hawthorne and Herman Melville explored the struggle between good and evil in their novels. Lastly, U.S. historians of early America, while writers were getting their distinctions like historians started to emerge, men like George Bancroft, William H. Prescott, and Francis Parkman began to write textbooks, personal accounts, and volumes of books on past events. And now it's time for the mystery document. Oh, wow. Thanks, Stan. Okay, now on to the mystery document. At morn, at noon, at twilight dim, Maria, thou hast heard my hymn. In joy and woe, in good and ill, Mother of God, be with me still. When the hours flew brightly by, and not a cloud obscured the sky, my soul, lest it should traunt be, thy grace did not guide to thine and thee. Now when the storms of fate o'ercast, darkly my present and my past, let my future radiant shine with sweet hopes of thee and thine. Okay, noticing how it talks about darkness, obscurity, and it says hymn in it, and we're talking about the time period of Poe. I'm gonna say it's the hymn by Edgar Allan Poe.
Dang it.
You got it. Good job.
Alright, that's it for this video. I'm done.